Welcome back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively into a real normal, sort of normal sports cycling sports week here. All of it brought to you by our friends at Raskin Global. We're going to have Leonard Raskin on the program. You're going to be seeing a bigger, newer WNST.net at the BaltimorePositive.com location. We are merging the brands, hence I am wearing the hat. Drinking some coffee from my Cole Roofing mug, and of course, it is Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. I had to put the Chicken Palooza box away. I had to get the real box out here. We're going back to regular. Chicken Palooza's over right now, but lots of great things going on at Rofo. And of course, our friends at Sporticulture. I'm going to wear my Sporticulture hat later on in the week, but I do want to point this out before Luke Jones and I begin our football conversation, that they do have a new Sporticulture magma lamp. Now, the magma is going to burn black, and the base is now purple. It's a little different because it was black and purple before. So we're going to see different colors here, and hopefully that means we're going to go 15-1 this year, Luke Jones. I think, right? I mean, it's weird for me. I haven't been with you other than for 45 minutes when we sweat down at the stadium in the last 8 months. We get together here on Zoom and video and speak to the masses. And it's weird for me to think that, like, you haven't been out there for press conferences standing next to Pat Ricard or any of these places. I've jumped in on a couple of press conferences. I saw Brandon Williams. I saw John Harbaugh. I jump in from time to time while I'm building this new website. But all of this is so strange to me. And I even said to you before we got going, I'm like, now we're going to the game Sunday, right? Like, we have credentials, right? Like, we're going to go. But you and I, nobody wants to hear us talking about going to the game this week because they're not going, right? So, I don't even know what to anticipate, where they're going to seat me, what mask I'm going to wear, what glare might be on my – I'm not prepared for this, but I think at 1 o'clock on Sunday, or dare I say, I don't know, about 6 o'clock on Thursday night, my wife and I are firing up margaritas, and they're actually playing football. I guess I'll be into it, but I can't say that I really am right now, and I don't know that everybody is because I'm not feeling that.
Well, I think people are into it, but I think there's definitely a weirdness to the fact that they're kicking off the season less than a week from now, and we haven't seen a preseason game. No one was able to go to training camp other than a handful of media members. I was out there just about every day for training camp. But to your point, we haven't seen any of these players or coaches in the flesh other than just watching from the sideline as they're on the field. Haven't had a chance to ask them a question face to face. We always use the term talking heads in media, and that's literally what we've become this year from a media standpoint. And to your point, fans they're still saying, hey, you get to go cover that. And I agree with them, but it is very different. We're not in the locker room. We're not having conversations with these guys off to the side. You're not pulling them off the field to ask a few questions like you can in a normal training camp. And that's not going to change. That's going to be the protocol for 2020. I hope things go back to normal eventually, 2021 and beyond. That's a discussion for a different day. But it does speak to how different it is. But I think even for those who are more optimistic about the season, and you and I talked about this a lot, I was cautiously optimistic throughout. I still am, but fully acknowledging that this could go sideways as well. But even with that optimism, there was very much a lingering doubt in the back of my mind as far as whether it would actually happen, whether we'd be talking about the Browns week 1, whether we'd be talking about Kansas City week 3. Certainly the conversation about whether there would be any fans at any point. And at this point, we know for the foreseeable future, there won't be here in Baltimore. So there's so much weirdness to this, but at the same time, I think there is still an excitement because, to your point, whether it's 15-1, which, by the way, I don't think they're going to go 15-1, but there's clearly sky-high optimism, and there should be, based on what happened last year, based on the continuity that this organization has in the midst of such turbulent times, whether you're talking about player movement, coaches, general manager, what have you. The Ravens are really at an advantage from that standpoint. So even though it's different, and look, I have friends who have been season ticket holders and people who go to the games every year, tailgate, and they're missing that part of it. But at the same time, I think there is some excitement to see some football. Now, hopefully it goes better for the Ravens on Sunday than it did for Navy on Monday night, because, I mean, just a, weird environment and certainly a painful environment outcome for the Mids. But I think there's intrigue, but to your
Quiet
point,
football's weird, dude. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I'll just say this: like I don't watch a lot of television, and I've watched some pandemic television, and
Mm-hmm.
watching the news and doing the way we do our media here, and trying to envision a new media way at Baltimore Positive. We're launching a whole new brand this week, and merging our WNST brand, and something I've taken 35 years of my life to put together. But how all of us are communicating at this point, and the ways we communicate, and the way television shows are put on. Bill Maher, I watched Bill Maher on HBO. He started doing it from his house 6 months ago, out in his garden, and he did his monologue under this thing in his basement, and they had canned laughter. Last week, he went back and sat in his own studio, and they didn't do any of the laughter, and everything fell flat.
Yeah.
With baseball, they're at Camden Yards one night, and the kid in the sound truck, the Chris Pica over there, has the sound right, and it sounds like a ball game. Like when there's a foul ball, there might be or applause when there's a home run. I mean, if there's sounds, it feels better. And I don't know. Hockey hasn't gotten that right. You know what I mean? And I know there are people that love sports, the coach types that love, like I've had some friends say, man, I love hearing what they're saying in the dugouts. And I'm thinking to myself, if that's going to be the new normal, that it's going to be silent and I'm going to hear guys in dugouts talking, I don't find that interesting for 3 hours. I find it feeling much more like a Pony League ball game up on the upper field at the Joseph Lee Fields at Eastwood 1978. It feels like community sports to me. It does not feel like major league sports, big time sports. And I don't know how the NFL is going to present this. I'm assuming they've spent billions and billions of dollars doing this. But part of it for me, and this is just, and again, I don't go to movies. I'm not susceptible to science. You like Star Wars and all that kind of more than I do. I don't go into the theater, into the box, and believe I'm in Wakanda. Is that the name? I don't want to be disrespectful. Make sure I get the right country because I haven't seen the movie, or the right planet, or whatever it was. I don't. So when I'm watching a football game this week, it needs to feel like a football game, and I know it will from the offense and defense, and from trying hard, and from how much it means to them because I've been a part of it. And maybe it's at that point that I'll bake into it. It's a little different at practice when it's 100 degrees. It's a little different, quite frankly, we watch this crappy preseason football we haven't been susceptible to this year, right? That doesn't feel the same. And same way that the playoffs don't feel the same as the regular season to some degree. But a lot of that is fueled by the gladiatory sort of spectacle of 70,000 of us coming down there wearing purple and making noise on third down. That when you take that out, I know it's suffered in hockey dramatically. It's suffered in comedy dramatically. It's suffered in almost every other way I can imagine. Like I haven't seen anything distanced that I think is better in any way, or even sort of kind of the same. Like if I watched a movie in black and white, I probably could enjoy it more than watching a baseball game with no fans. And that comes with me loving sports my whole life. And maybe part of it, and I've talked about this a lot. I mean, this is a psychological evaluation for all of us. But I think the reason I like concerts and sports might be the same thing. That I like people, that I like noise, that I like action, that I like seeing people happy. More so than sad, it's probably why I don't go to cops shoot them up. I don't like seeing people frightened. You know what I mean? Like I like seeing people happy, and I like seeing people engaged, and I like seeing people interact, and I like seeing people sing songs together, and maybe that's part of what I liked about baseball when I was 5 years old, is coming up and being at Memorial Stadium and having something that everybody does together. And the fact that we're going to be doing it with hopefully Pizza John's and Royal Farms Chicken and all sorts of sponsor food along the tailgate on Sunday, wherever we do it, it makes you want the real thing in every instance. I want real baseball. I want real hockey. I want real basketball. I want real concerts. I want real dinners. I want to hug your mom and your sister and, shake your hand. I want to interact with John. I want all of these things back. But football was supposed to be the thing that made everything normal, right? Like this is going to be when we're going to all vote for Trump again because he fixed everything. This isn't going to feel fixed to me this week. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm going to watch it because I like football. And it feels more meaningful to me than sitting around and watching Dean Kramer pitch this weekend, right? And we can get to that, and we will get to that.
I guess. It comes down to this.
Well, the Ravens can win the Super Bowl. The Orioles can do nothing.
I understand that, but no one's saying this is normal. I mean, we've had this conversation back and forth over and over and over. I think for the athletes, it's almost like filming a movie rather than being on Broadway because you're not getting that instant feedback from an audience. And not that I'm a big theater guy or anything like that, but understanding what that experience is like compared to filming a movie where you have no instant feedback as far as whether it's any good or not, whether people are enjoying it or not. Now, you obviously have a movie theater, and look, of course I miss the fans. There's no question about that. I've been out at Camden Yards, and I know the punchline is, well, I covered plenty of games where there weren't many fans there the last couple of years, and I can't disagree with that. But I keep going back to this is better than nothing, though, right? I mean, if the line is we have to have fans or we don't do it at all, then I'll take this. I'll take this every time.
You know what? I love when you bring that up because you're right. And, they're getting paid to do it, and God bless them. And they're now an essential business, and they're beaming in, and we're all going to spend some money and go out and get some carry out this week.
Sure.
WNST sponsors. And I get that part of it. That doesn't mean that I have to enjoy it as much or talk myself into it or put it on every night with the Orioles in the way that people aren't watching the NBA the way they were, in the way that, the NHL, the minute the Caps go, it's like they're not playing anymore, even though it's September and they're playing the Stanley Cup semifinals.
Right.
I guess, were your Flyers people into it? I mean, I didn't have one person in my world mentioning the Flyers last week, and they played 7 games and had a chance and came from behind. And I didn't even see the what's the creature's name? Grizzly? Groupie? Youpie?
Gritty, I think.
Gritty. Thank you.
Whatever
I
it
don't
is.
know.
Yeah,
whatever he is. The big orange fluffy thing.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of it because I don't know. I don't think people don't like the Flyers. I mean, I don't like the Flyers or don't like hockey or whatever. I just think all of this has felt a little bit Alice in Wonderland. Like, is this really what I'm going to focus on right now? I mean, there's a little bit of that. Football, I think, will change that. I mean, I do. I mean, I think football this week will, like on Thursday night, they'll do a friggin' 80 share. I mean, I really believe that because people want to tune it in. Now, what they find when they tune it in and how it makes them feel, I'm telling you how it makes me feel. I mean, it almost friggin' depresses me, dude. Like watching a baseball game with no one, with this lousy team that now, I mean, for years, people stopped coming. Every time I went, it got more morose for 25 years. Now nobody's allowed to go. So it's really weird to me, but there is this hope of Kramer and all these, and Machado's playing at Sandy. I mean, my eyes are on it, but my attention is not on it. That's different, Following the who won last night is different than I'm tuning in Ben and Scotty every night. Football, you don't have to worry about that, and you don't even have to worry about it during the week, and you can fill out your fantasy team, you can bet on the game, all of those. You can get wings and from Royal Farms, and you could do all of it. You go to King Liquors, give the king a ring. You could do all of those things, and at 1:00 on Sunday, if every game's like a road game, it's a wing party, and you get drunk, and you bet, and you hang out, and you get on Zoom with your cousin, and give him grief if he's a Steeler fan, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I do think it's an interesting point. One, we know the NFL's king. I mean, all the other sports, look, I love baseball. You love hockey. My brother-in-law loves the NBA. Nothing compares to the NFL. I mean, the numbers bear that out. I think beyond that, I do think there's an interesting element here, because you're talking about the ratings for various sports, and look, I mean, you and I could talk about the viability of Nielsen ratings in 2020 when you're talking about streaming services and YouTube TV, all the different ways that people now consume product. But I think there is something to the weirdness of the scheduling of this. The NBA is playing the playoffs right now in September. They're in the second round of the NBA playoffs, and they're going to be playing the finals at a time where we're talking about the baseball playoffs. Same with hockey. Even baseball, even though we're used to September baseball, Nestor, it doesn't feel like September. It feels like mid-May in the context of a baseball schedule. Now, I've very much enjoyed watching baseball, but it doesn't feel like it's September. And even with that,
it feels like an extended tryout with baseball. I mean, to some degree, it feels like an Arizona. It feels like a Venezuelan league, like a 2-month sprint. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me.
But I think the novelty and the weirdness and the timing of these leagues compared to what they normally are. Think about it. Right now, normally you're watching college football, the NFL, and Major League Baseball. The NBA would be starting up camp later this month. Hockey would be getting into preseason mode. Now you have all these choices at the same time. So you have baseball competing with the NBA for eyeballs, competing with the NHL for eyeballs.
Not to mention everything else I've decided to do with my life the last 6 months.
Sure. No question.
I'm running around with a mask on trying to keep, oatmeal in the house and bottled water.
And we saw this in 2016. The election impacted even the NFL's television ratings. So there's some of that going on as we get a little bit more deeper into the fall. So I think acknowledging the uniqueness and the novelty of all these other things going on, the NFL, other than no fans, which I know that's a big but it's the schedule, the timing of it, all of that. The rest of it looks like it could be normal. We hope, knock on wood. So it's definitely, it's going to be interesting to see what the response is for that. And I'm with you. I mean, we saw the ratings that the NFL drafted, for example, and that was at a time when nothing was going on from a sports standpoint other than
this has been easy to schedule for, right? Like I look at I'm like, what? No Stones, no Pearl Jam, no concerts, no beach, no ball. Oh, yeah, I got time on Thursday for Mahomes. Sure, come on. Yeah, I think the appointment viewing part of this and the fact that everything else has felt randomly optional, like hockey games at 3:00 in the afternoon and some sort of World Cup schedule and all of that, that this is nobody's got anything else to do, so this is going to be a big deal. I mean, that's why I want to get Baltimore Positive launched. That's why I think there will be a lot of activity in and around our Twitter and Facebook and social media on Sunday and Monday and the aftermath and who did that and, how Lamar looked and who's Baker Mayfield and, who's coaching the Browns and all. I'm getting into all of that this week, and I'm going to sense that in the aftermath of Thursday night, by Friday and Saturday, even though we're not revving up the tailgate and putting fresh meat in the back of the pickup truck and getting the flags ready, doing all of that to go down to the stadium for the 30 or 40,000 people that do that regularly as what they do, right? Those people are going to do that in their backyard, and I'm going to see pictures on my timeline, and it's going to be everything that they love to do in the parking lot, except they're going to have like a pool, and they're going to have like running water, and and their dog's going to be there, and like all of that. And I'm a little scared for the leagues that people might not want to go back. That's next week's conversation or next off seasons, but I'm really worried about that with baseball. Like how much people are really going to be willing to spend to go to a baseball game when this is all over with from a value standpoint, or a basketball game or a hockey game or for what they charge to do these things. Yeah. Football worries me a little bit that people get home the whole year here. These are $200 and $300 and $400 days for most people, right? So if it gets to be too much fun up there in Pennsylvania for you and your brother, you might not come back off the farm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair concern. I mean, I think that's been something we've talked about, just the television experience getting so much better over the years anyway. I mean, just HD TVs. I mean, I couldn't have possibly fathomed when I was a kid that I would have a 55-inch HD TV in my living room. And, I'm not I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. I mean, that's just what people have that now. I mean, that's fairly, I don't want to say it's standard across the board because not everyone has that, but that's not unique. When I was a kid and I went to my best buddy's house in second or third grade, they had a big screen TV. That was like a really big deal. That was
You didn't
really
want to go home.
weird. Right. That was like, and they had a satellite dish and you could get channels from out in California on their TV. I mean, you just think about how that has evolved, and now even more so it's streaming and on demand. And I mean, who knows where it's going to go. I think there is an interesting thought to that. But I also think on the flip side with this happening, Nestor, there might be a greater demand to be able to congregate again. The idea of going to more ball games sounds appealing when it's taken away from you. So I think it could go either way.
I think in 25 years of going to the stadium and going to all these games, like I this week I decided I'm healthy. It's okay. My wife flew to. I'm going to fly to Houston next week and go to the game. But like, and I've talked to you about it on the air and off the air. I mean, there's no part of that. You and I spent a week together in Houston down there. I spent a week down there with my wife 20 years ago for a Super Bowl, right? Like, I'm an Oiler fan. I mean, all of the parts of going to Houston where it's going to be empty after going to my own stadium here this week where it's going to be empty, I'm not relishing the feeling of that experience. And I know I've asked you several times about the weirdness of going to these baseball games, and I don't think – and you've been to 15 or 20 of them now, right? Like, so after doing the one famous Kevin Cowherd game 5 years ago, I guess it never feels normal, right? I mean,
it's a TV event now. I mean, it is. Like, don't get me wrong. And look, again, no one's going to – listening to this is going to say, oh, you shouldn't be complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you, I'm painting the picture of reality for you right now. It's very strange being in an empty ballpark. There are elements to it that are interesting because you do hear the dugout reaction. You can hear Brandon Hyde lose his mind over a ball or a strike call that he clearly doesn't agree with. You can hear Cedric Mullins slide into second base. In fact, on the last homestand, I could hear someone crash into the wall, the outfield wall, all the way from the press box behind home plate. So, yeah, there's some novelty elements like that are really interesting. But I'll say this, as a baseball fan, I have much more enjoyed watching it on TV this year than being out there at the ballpark. And look, there's some value to me being at the ballpark, and I could tell you that Cedric Mullins got a great jump on the fly ball to the gap in left center and ran it down, or someone didn't get a good jump. So you see little things that TV won't necessarily pick up, but by and large, it's a very depressing isn't the right word, because I do respect these guys for the energy they've been able to bring. And I think that's going to be another element you and I have talked about in a sport like football. I mean, if you watch the Navy BYU game Monday night, hearing the amount of energy from those sidelines and hearing the players react, one, you get a sense of just how passionate they are.
But it's high school sound, right? It sounds like a high school sideline,
it is,
right?
But they're also not getting that energy from Annapolis or Baltimore or Cleveland. All these places that are have stadiums that sit 70 or 80,000 people. Suddenly, you're needing to create your own energy because you're going to have from my understanding, and I think the NFL is still tweaking it, but the way it sounds is it's going to be pre-recorded crowd noise right around a 70 decibel level, which 70 decibels is not what it sounds like when it's scoring a touchdown. That's what it kind of generally sounds like. So you'll have the ambiance noise. I think that will help the TV presentation in the same way that I think it's helped baseball in that way. But it's going to be weird. There's no question about that. And certainly watching it in person, it's very strange. But this is exclusively a TV event now. What I think about watching a baseball game from the press box right now is irrelevant because
I've been to made for TV. So, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremonies and made for TV, the Grammys, all of that.
As I said to you, it's the difference between a movie and being on Broadway for a live performance on stage where there is an audience where you get instant feedback. So, for the players, that's different. And we've talked about it in baseball. Some guys I think have thrived under that. I think there's other players and teams for that matter, maybe the Washington Nationals, for example, who have kind of gone through the motions and, had some injuries and some guys opt out. And, You just won the World Series, so there's always a little bit of that hangover, even in a normal year. And your crowd, they can't even come to celebrate with you. I mean, you get your rings, and there's nothing in terms of crowd.
Yeah, I saw the Mahomes getting the ring thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs respond to that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's the Ravens and the Chiefs in the AFC, and Tennessee trying to fit into that picture. But there are some psychological elements that John Harbaugh was asked about this Monday, and he just said, "I have no thoughts on it." And look, John's not thinking about something like that for Cleveland Browns week specifically, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be some times. Justin Tucker talked about this last week. He said, he started thinking about it as far as not having any fans. And he said it's one thing for his home stadium, but he actually thought about being at Heinz Field against the Steelers. And think about it. He's made some game-winning kicks in that stadium in his career. And what really kind of weirded him out was the thought that there's not going to be a screaming crowd trying to distract him in that final moment when he's trying to make a kick to win.
It's like kicking at Patterson Park.
Yeah. So there's definitely there is absolutely some sports psychology elements that I'm not smart enough to identify.
You know what? I hope I get some
questions
soon, because I've sort of abstained a little bit. It's not out of boredom. And I'm building this new website, and I'm completely, literally around the clock. I tweet in the middle of the night, up all night. I mean, I've been up all night trying to launch this thing as soon as I can. We'll get it out this week for all of our friends, all of our sponsors, everything we're doing here. But there is a part of me that I'm not objecting in any way. I just don't have much to ask or say or whatever based on preseason games. I didn't have based on practice, as Allen Iverson would say. And he showed up my timeline after John Thompson died last week. So, there's been plenty of sports and stuff in my life, right, that's been coming out. And, obviously we had Lou Brock passed away over the weekend, so all the baseball people were out. Mm-hmm. But this feels like day after Labor Day, kids back to school, leaves changing, we hope. It's 112 in L.A., right? We're playing in Houston next week. There's Thursday night football. There's Sunday football. There's Monday football. Houston's playing Kansas City. Kansas City's playing us. We're playing Houston. All of this is going on, like, out of the gate. And it's not the Steelers and all that stuff. It's this stuff. Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore Luke, and Luke at WNST.net. I want to give a shout-out to all of our sponsors, including our friends at the Harka. I polished off the Caramel Crunch the other night. That is the salted caramel ice cream with the chocolate-covered honeycomb toffee that you can pick up here in Baltimore. You can deliver it. They'll deliver it to you if you order it online, made here in Baltimore, our friends at the Harka. We're going to talk all things Ravens and Browns all week long. We're going out to Cleveland for that. We're going to have a steady diet of Baltimore positive conversation here this week as well. We're going to check in with Kevin Byrne down on the farm in South Carolina. Michael Regai is going to be here. Femi Ayabandejo, who is doing the color for the Ravens this year, along with Dennis Pitt, is going to join us. Daryl Ryder, Scott Petrick from Cleveland, as well as Bernard McKinney checking in from the West Coast. Bernard McKinney, my lifer Browns friend and former producer of Nasty Nationwide 20 years ago at Sporting News Radio. He said he has not followed the Browns at all, and he's a lifer Browns guy. So I have some sports friends that are sort of off the resume. I asked Bud Shaw to come on. Bud said, I've retired. I'm not covering it. I'm not following anymore. I'm like, Bud Shaw not covering Cleveland sports. Like, things have gotten weird, Luke. So you and I are going to be at it. Luke Jones is here. He is Luke at WNST.net. That will not change. I am Nasty at WNST.net. Together, we're out at WNST.net, at Baltimore Positive, and merging the streams this week with some Orioles and Ravens conversation, amongst other things. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We're calm, we're local, and we're Baltimore Positive.